dears, dear fourth graders, it's Mrs. Gates. I'm going to continue reading Shadow by Michael Morpurgo. Chapter 10, Counting the Stars, as told by Ammon. Good readers, follow along. The window was high up, but Mother thought if we turned the bed on its side and climbed up, we might just be able to get out. So that's what we did. It was a small window, and there'd be a big drop on the other side. But we had no choice. We had to try. It was our only hope. I went first, and Mother handed Shadow up to me. I dropped Shadow to the ground, saw her land safely, and then followed her. It was more difficult for Mother, and it took some time, but in the end, she managed to squeeze herself out of the window and jump down. We were in an alleyway. No one was about. I wanted us to run, but Mother said that would attract attention. So we walked out of the alleyway and into the crowded streets of Kabul, with lots of other people about. I thought we were safe enough, but Mother said we'd be better off out of Kabul altogether, as far away from that man as we could get. We had no money for food, no money for bus fare. So we started walking. Shadow was leading the way again. We just followed her through the city streets, weaving our way through the bustle of people and traffic, too exhausted to care which way she was taking us. North, south, east, or west, it really did not bother us. We were leaving danger behind us, and that was all that mattered. By the time it got dark, we were already well outside the city. The stars and the moon were out over the mountains. But it was a cold night, and we knew we'd have to find shelter soon. We had been trying to hitch a ride for hours, but nothing had stopped. Then we got lucky. A truck was parked up ahead of us, at the side of the road. I knocked on the window of the cab and asked the driver if we would have a ride, if we could have a ride. He asked where we came from. When I told him we were from Bamiyan and we were going to England, he laughed and told us he was from a village down the valley and that he was Hazara like us. He wasn't going as far as England, only to Kandahar, and was happy to take us if that would help. Mother said we would go wherever he was going. We were hungry and tired, and we just needed to rest. He turned out to be the kindest man we could have hoped to meet. He gave us water to drink and shared his supper with us. In the warm air of the cab, we soon shivered the cold out of us. He asked us a few questions, mostly about Shadow. He said he had only once before seen a foreign-looking dog like that, with the American soldiers or the British. He wasn't sure which. They use dogs like this to find the roadside bombs to sniff them out, he said, shaking his head sadly. Those soldiers, the foreign soldiers, they all look much the same in their helmets, and some of them are so young, just boys, most of them, far from home and too young to die. After that, he stopped talking and just hummed along with the music on his radio. We were asleep before we knew it. I don't know how many hours later the driver woke us. Kandahar, he said. He pointed out the way to the Iranian frontier on his map, south and west. But you'll need papers to get across. The Iranians are very strict. Have you got any papers? You haven't, have you? Money? No, Mother told him. Papers I can't help you with, the driver said. But I have a little money. It's not much. But you are Hazara. You are like family. And your need is greater than mine. Mother didn't like to take it, but he insisted. So thanks to this stranger, we were at least able to eat and find a room to stay while we worked out what to do and where to go next. I don't know how much money the driver gave us, but I do know that by the time Mother had paid for the meal and the room for the night, there was very little left. Enough only to buy us the bus fare out of town the next morning. But as it turned out, that didn't get us very far. The bus that we had taken, that was supposed to take us all the way to the frontier, broke down out in the middle of the countryside. But it was now a countryside very different from the gentle valley of Bamiyan that I was used to. There were no orchards, no fields here, just desert and rocks as far as you could see. So hot and dusty by day that you could hardly breathe, and cold at night, sometimes too cold to sleep. But there were always the stars. Father used to tell me you only had to try counting the stars, and you always went to sleep in the end. I always like to point out that was the title of the chapter. Think about why. He was right most nights. Night or day, we were always thirsty, always hungry, and the blister on my heel was getting a lot worse all the time. It was hurting me more and more. After walking for many days, I don't know how many, we came, at last, to a small village where we had a drink from the well and rested for a bit while Mother bathed my foot. The people there stood at their doors and looked at us warily, almost as if we were from outer space. When Mother asked the way to the frontier, they shrugged and turned away. Again, it was Shadow that seemed to interest them, not us. And she was doing what she always did, running around, exploring everywhere with her nose. As we left, I saw that some of the children were following us, watching us from a distance. Just outside the village, we saw a crossroads ahead of us. Now what? I asked Mother. Which way? That was when I noticed that Shadow had suddenly stopped. She was standing stock still at the crossroads, head down, staring at the ground at the side of the road. I had called out to her, and she didn't even turn around. I knew something was wrong right away. I looked behind me. The village children had stopped too, and one or two of them were pointing, not at Shadow, but at something farther away, farther down the road. I saw then what they had seen. Foreign soldiers, several of them, coming slowly toward us. The one in front had a detector. I'd seen them before in Bamiyan, and I knew what they were for. He was sweeping the road ahead of him for bombs. I think it was only then that I put two and two together and realized what Shadow was doing. She had discovered a bomb. She was pointing to it. She was showing us. And I knew somehow that she was showing the soldiers too. But they still couldn't see her. She was hidden. She was hidden from them by a boulder at the side of the road. So I just ran. I never even thought about it. I just ran toward the soldiers, toward Shadow, toward the bomb.